Well, let's go ahead and get started with conclusion question number 1 of our homework. Remember that usually with our conclusion, we're looking for the opinion of either our author or the piece we're reading, either or. The conclusion is the equivalent of the general opinion of the piece that you're reading. So we're going to start here with our first portion of the stimulus. We have an anthropologist saying many people think. So we already have an indicator of many people. Usually those are other people. Unless our conclusion is going to lead us towards a very specific idea that we're concluding that many people have a characteristic, usually the indicator of many people really talks to us about the masses, the other people, people that don't share our opinion. So here we have again, many people think that if human language evolved, then something like it must be present in those species most closely related to humans, such as chimpanzees. They reason, so again, we're at other people, they. So we're still talking about, in all likelihood, the population that has a contrary opinion to ours or a different opinion to ours. They reason that since new traits evolve gradually, something like human language, albeit cruder, must exist in some species from which humans evolved. Okay, let's stop there for just a moment. What we're saying is humans exist here, and they clearly have a language because we're using it currently at the moment. And then we have a prior species. And what we're arguing is that this must have had something cruder language must have been present here. All right, that's our argument so far. This general line of argument may be reasonable, but it simply does not follow that chimpanzees have anything like human language. Okay, that seems to be the opinion of our author. Our but statement seems to clarify and disagree. That sure seems to be like an indicator of our current author's perspective, as well as the piece that we're reading currently at the moment, of course, because this seems now to be like an explanation. All right, our because statement is an explanation of our but statement. Okay, because humans did not evolve from chimpanzees, while chimpanzees are indeed closely related to humans, this is because both evolved from a common ancestor. Okay, so we could theoretically draw this out this way. Common ancestor, and they led towards humans as well as chimpanzees. The evolution of human language might easily have begun after the extinction of that common species. Okay, so we are definitely taking an argument that are taking a position where we're originally saying something cruder must have existed, which trickled down into our human language. Meanwhile, our author is saying, nope, not true. This common ancestor could have been extinct, and language could have begun developing somewhere after that species became extinct. As a result, the species could not have had a cruder trait or a cruder version of language because it would have been irrelevant. It wouldn't have been passed down, right? They wouldn't have been the cause or the beginning of this evolution of language. So that being said, we have a very clear statement. Our but statement seems to be the indicator of our conclusion or the commencement of our conclusion. And we'll highlight that. And then also our because statement seems to be a significant clarification. Let's look to see if we can find language in our answer choices that match the standard set by our stimulus. A says humans did not evolve from chimpanzees, but rather from some extinct species. Okay? Well, the extinction piece was thrown in there as a possibility. In essence, we've said, well, it may not be true that this prior species, this common ancestor, had cruder language, because the language could have developed after that species became extinct. That was could have logic, right? So we never actually said that A is in fact true. We just mentioned that A is a possibility as far as this extinct species portion of it goes. And then the beginning of it, humans did not evolve from chimpanzees. Well, that's definitely told to us, but it doesn't seem to be like the main point. If we look at our but statement, it simply does not follow that chimpanzees have anything like human language. Really, our issue is language related. A talks nothing of language related. So A is out. Let's go into B. The assumption that something like human language must exist in some species from which humans evolved has no clear-cut linguistic implications for chimpanzees. Well, what does this mean? If this common ancestor were extinct by the time language began to evolve, that means that there would be no path towards which chimpanzees received any of the trickle downs from this common ancestor. There would have been nothing to trickle down. That being said, we're also, with our because statement, humans did not evolve from chimpanzees. While chimpanzees are indeed closely related to humans, this is because both evolved from a common ancestor. The evolution of human language might easily have begun after the extinction of that common ancestor, right? That proves our point that ultimately the chimp evolutionary line is completely exclusive of the human evolutionary line. So B has some promise. Let's take a look at C. The communication systems of chimpanzees. Well, this is assuming that chimpanzees have communication systems. We were never told that. So it cannot be our conclusion if it's not even an assumption or something that is mentioned in our stimulus. So that's out. D says human language is a byproduct of human intelligence, which chimpanzees lack. Well, never mentioned this human intelligence piece. So very unlikely that's going to be part of our conclusion. Also, secondarily, we're never told that human language is a byproduct of this thing called human intelligence. As a matter of fact, as we mentioned, human intelligence is not mentioned at all. So as a result, D cannot be our conclusion. E tells us the evolution of human language began after the disappearance of an extinct species from which both humans and chimpanzees evolved. That might be true, but please remember our logic as related to this extinction of this common species or common ancestor species was just thrown in as a hypothetical. And we're bringing up the fact that it may very well be that human language began evolving subsequent to the extinction of that species. So E is a possibility, but it's definitely not our conclusion, right? We're not even confirming that it's actually accurate. We just threw this out as an example of something that might be possible. So without question, our correct answer choice here should be B. Let's go ahead and work our way through it one more time quickly. B tells us the assumption that something like human language must exist in some species from which humans evolved. Okay, we definitely have that in our logic, right? We mentioned the fact that there may be a cruder version of language, of human language, in this common ancestor species. And then we end with has no clear-cut linguistic implications for chimpanzees. That's correct. That's exactly what our stimulus is telling us, that whatever evolution of language occurred within humans has no direct impact on chimpanzees. I hope this helped. Looking forward to working on our next question.